Welcome to my channel. What is up, everyone? So originally this was going to be a silent vlog, but something happened along the way, and it's that I forgot to record the first stages for this painting, where I applied the first layers and also when I did the sketch. So I decided to just jump in and do a little voiceover to talk with you a little bit about the process for this painting. This painting was done completely in watercolors. I think I used some pencil colors for some details, but 90% of it was done in watercolors. So yeah, well, anyways, I'm going to explain a little bit of what I did, since you won't be able to see it. But I applied the first layers, very sheer light layers. That's how I personally like to work. And for this painting in particular, I am using a cellulose paper. So it's not a cotton paper, it's cellulose, but I think the result is very, very good. So stay tuned for watching. Some of the details for this illustration, I always like to add them with pencil colors. Here, for example, I'm just adding some of the harshest lines in the eyes, some of the contours as well. This helps me get a very clear vision of where I have to paint. And now the base color for this painting is sienna, but I never like to apply the color directly from the pen. I always like to mix it up with some other shades, and in this case I added some ochre yellow and also a tint of red. I think it was like a crimson red, and this is the shade that I created, the one that I've used for this deer skin. Well, it's not a skin, you know, it's fur. And I applying it with a round brush, I think it's number 10 or number 12. Those are usually the ones that I use for my illustrations. I tend to work with very large brushes since they really allow me to paint fast. And my number 3 brush, I only use it for small spaces, small areas, like here, for example. Now, a detail that I think it's important to talk about is that I don't like to apply the color directly. I like to build the color, which means that I work a lot in layers. So as you can see, and like I explained to you, the first layers that I use are always very light, and I let it dry, and then I apply more layers to the areas that are a little bit more saturated or darker, and that is how I get to the final color that I want to achieve. So in this case, I'm doing that with the nose, and I didn't apply the black color directly. I worked in grayscale, layers of gray, until I achieved the perfect tone. And I'm also using a very small brush here because I don't want this area to be faded. I really want it to be a little bit more defined. And yeah, that's what I did. I am adding some other shadows for this painting, some other contours, and I am using some more pigmented layers. As you can see, this is about building the color, it's about building the layers, it's about creating the right shade that you want for your painting, little by little, not going directly into it, but just trying to make it work while you paint. And I also like to blend a lot of my layers, and how I do it is I just add some water to the contours, but I'm going to explain that to you in a little while. Here I am adding some pencil colors, which is something that I always like to do, especially with the darkest areas of my paintings. I like to darken them up with pencil colors, especially a black pencil color. And then I go back to watercolors, which is the main medium for this. I originally wanted this illustration to have a lot of botanical elements because that's how I like to work. And I am doing some of the leaves with a very muted green, as you can see. So my idea for this was to make the bottom part of the illustration with very dark muted shades of green, and the top part I wanted to use some very light and vibrant shades of green with a lot of yellow and a little bit of orange as well. You're gonna see that in a while. Here I am painting the lower part. I use a very, not a tiny brush, but a brush whose size allows me to paint the little details as well. And I always make sure to clean while I paint and not let these puddles of water appear. I always like to use layers that are very, very homogeneous, so that the painting looks very smooth. And yep, that's what I'm doing here. I also like to add some darkest shades in the corners at the end while the paint is still wet. Now I am transitioning to a brighter and warmer shade of green. And as you can see, I've added some more olive green, and that's why you can see a different shade here. I apply it with my number 10 brush. It's my favorite brush, I think, for painting. It's just the right size for me. And as you can see, while the painting is still wet, I am applying another layer on top to darken some of the contours, some of the tiniest parts of these shapes. I really like to do that. This olive green is one of my favorite ones to use for the leaves. Here at the bottom, I am painting another leaf. And as you can see, I don't know if you can tell here, but this was my idea. As you can see, the top leaves, they look a little bit more yellowish. And the bottom ones, they look more muted, they look darker. I've used more blue for these ones. There I am mixing more blue, and I am applying it to especially the contours of the leaves. I really like the color to concentrate a lot in the corners, in those little angles that are formed. That's how I personally like to paint. Now it is time, I think, to darken some of the layers once again. The more I progress in a painting, the darker that the layers become. And here I am applying another layer, and as you can see, in this color right here, I've added more of a red tint and probably more sienna, so it looks different than the color I used at the beginning. But this is exactly the effect that I really wanted to create. And I always try to blend each layer that I apply. And the way that I blend it is I simply clean my brush with water, and then I press it right on the borders so that I can smooth each layer of paint and make it fade completely into the background. I really like to do that effect on all of my illustrations. I think it looks very cute. It's part of my style now, and it's a technique that allows me to have very, very soft washes of paint. Did I just say paint? I meant paint. Washes of paint without necessarily using cotton paper. So if you cannot afford it, don't worry. Use a tip. Learn how to blend. I can show you that in another video if that's what you want, but you're probably gonna see how I'm doing that in some of the parts for this painting, especially when I paint portraits of people and animals that have very short hair, very short fur, I like to do that blending quite a lot. Since the texture of the hair is not that noticeable, I really like the colors to look very, very soft and blended into each one of the layers. And I am gonna use that same color to fill the other details for this deer. It's a very, very gorgeous shade. I like it quite a lot. As you can see, I've applied it everywhere. Very pretty. Now the time has come to paint the flowers. I think I mentioned in another video that I really love painting botanical elements and adding them to my compositions. I really wanted to paint this deer with some very cute white flowers. I don't know, I really wanted to include that. Those are elements that are very present in my paintings. I really like nature overall, and the idea of painting this deer actually surfaced 2 years ago, and I did a painting of a lot of animals, to be honest, some animal portraits in watercolor. When I look back at those paintings, I realized that I really wasn't that good like I thought, but you know, that is definitely part of the process. Watercolor is a type of media that you need to practice quite a lot, and you need to experiment with so that you can master it little by little. So I don't regret painting the stuff that I did in all these years, but I think my style, my technique has definitely improved, and I wanted to do an updated version for that deer in this painting. And this is what I've done now, and I'm really, really happy with the result. This is exactly how I wanted to capture this very pretty deer. It has my style, of course. I don't like to draw completely realistic stuff. I always like to put my stamp on it and play a little bit with colors and shapes. That is part of my artistic process, I guess. So now I'm just finishing up some of the details for this illustration, and I am using a tiny brush to darken some of the areas. These are the last layers, and therefore the layers with less water, more pigment. That is how I work. The further I am in a painting, the less water I am going to use, because I just want to add details and some brush strokes that are a little bit more defined and not that loose. So here I am adding some of the shadows for the leaves, and this painting is pretty much done. There it is, the finished version of this painting. It's already afternoon. I did not expect to take so long with this painting, but I'm a very slow artist. Either way, look at how beautiful it looks. The ink is still a little bit wet. The watercolor still needs to dry a little bit, but I've enjoyed painting this so much. I hope that you like this video as well. Please tell me what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. I can't wait to be back and share with you more stuff that I like to create. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye.